Good afternoon, dear colleagues. Can I ask you to take your seats? Your Majesty, dear colleagues, today the European Parliament is honoured by the visit of His Majesty the King of the Belgians. Your Majesty, it was a pleasure for me and my colleagues to celebrate the 70th anniversary of the European Parliament together with you last year in Laeken. And this year, it is a privilege for the European Parliament to welcome you in our Brussels hemicycle, while Belgium holds the rotating presidency of the Council of the European Union. Brussels, the centre of Europe, is the host of many European institutions and the home of the European Parliament. We are grateful to be here, and thousands of Europeans serving Europe are proud to call Belgium home. Belgium, a founding European member, has played a leading role in developing our union, always protecting European ideals and advocating for European values. Last January, the visit of the Prime Minister of Belgium, Alexander De Croo, to this Parliament was an opportunity to outline the importance of the Belgian presidency. It closes off an intense five-year legislative cycle marked by unprecedented challenges. And I am proud of how this European Parliament has stepped up to meet them. Indeed, our Parliament still has an intense workload here today and until the very last plenary sitting of this legislature, in order to continue to deliver, as we have already done, on what European citizens expect from our European Union. In 60 days from today, the people of Belgium, including for the first time those aged 16 and 17, will be invited to vote for the 22 members of the European Parliament that will represent their interests and steer Europe for the next five-year term. We count on them to convey the message that Europe matters. 70 years of European Parliament democracy matters and must be defended further. Allow me, before I conclude, a moment to welcome students from the Go Atheneum in Halle, the Institute Saint Boniface Parnasse in Ixelles, and the Sacré-Cœur in Jette, seated today in the diplomatic gallery. They have come to our House of European Democracy for Your Majesty's visit today. Finally, Your Majesty, allow me to thank you for your personal commitment, dedication to public service and example. The floor is yours.
Mevrouw de voorzitter.
Madam President, honourable members of Parliament. It was here in Brussels that the European institutions found a home right at the beginning. And this Paul Henry Spaak building, named in honour of the historic Belgian pioneer of the European project, is the beating heart of European democracy. This is where the aspirations, wishes, concerns and grievances of 450 million European citizens are expressed. For every member state, the rotating presidency of the Council of the EU constitutes a highlight of their participation in European decision-making, and of course Belgium is no exception in this regard. And hence I am delighted that during the Belgian presidency, together with your chamber, over the recent months there's been quite considerable legislative progress achieved. And in the coming months, we're also going to have to fundamentally reflect on the future of our union. When it comes to the area of enlargement as well, we have major challenges ahead. We have to continue to work with conviction and dedication, because belief in Europe is in our DNA. This bond with Europe is something that I feel on a personal level as well, not just as head of state and as a Belgian, but also as an individual. My family tree bears witness to the cross-fertilization between European nations. And for all Europeans, the colourful heritage of our ancestors, along with the experiences that we garner along the way, make us who we are. This multifaceted and multi-layered interweaving of cultures constitute a huge enrichment, and it joins us with the destiny of others and really motivates us to bequeath a stable and prosperous environment for our loved ones and for future generations. Ladies and gentlemen, we see our task as President of the Council through the prism of hope. In these times of war, uncertainty, uneasiness in society, Europe and the world are in dire need of hope. Hope is not a dream. Hope is based on facts. Hope is the conviction that we can achieve something better, something higher, and that our contribution makes a difference. Now, often people talk about divisions within the European Union, but in our support in Ukraine in particular, we've shown that we can take strong decisions when we take them together. The struggle in Ukraine is our struggle too. It's a question of defending our security and our values. We also feel threatened, and rightly so. The same unity was demonstrated in the wake of the Brexit referendum, and the member states also showed solidarity in the fight against the corona pandemic, where there were unprecedented measures taken, such as a common procurement of vaccines and the European Economic Recovery Plan. Every time we see a crisis, at every moment of transition, we demonstrate our unity and our resolution. But the European Union is not just there to deal with crisis management, and a long-term vision must be its driving force. In German. Ladies and gentlemen, in our fight against climate change as well, we have to continue to work together. In 2020, we achieved our objectives on greenhouse gas emissions. And since 1990, the European economy has grown by 60%, while emissions have dropped by 30%. However, in order to achieve the 2030 and 2050 goals, there still remains a long way to go. Because unfortunately, global emissions are increasing. Our climate policy also helps us to achieve a further great objective, and that is the strategic independence of the EU. The more we make our energy consumption renewable, the less dependent we are on imported energy. Last year, wind energy and solar energy were more important than all other European sources of energy. So we have to stay on this track. And at the same time, we have to ensure that the strongest shoulders bear the heaviest burdens. The European Union is an essential geopolitical player and is the preeminent geo-ecological player on the world stage. In French. Ladies and gentlemen, over recent years, we've learnt to no longer be naive. We cannot become sleepwalkers. On the contrary, we need to be more resolute in putting our own fate into our own hands. And we've seen in the Union too much fragmentation. So let us think of a new great European revolution of our time. A revolution that aims at substituting unity in freedom and in diversity for national rivalries, as Jean Monnet suggested back in his day. Because the single market of Jacques Delors still has not been harmonized to a sufficient level, whether we're looking at economic governance, capital markets, or research and innovation. In our current world, where economies of scale are so important, companies can still work together more effectively, especially when it comes to new technologies. There are all sorts of opportunities that can be seized within electric mobility, semiconductors, batteries, rare earth minerals, and artificial intelligence. Far too often we end up lagging behind when it comes to invention, but especially when it comes to innovation. Of course, we need to advocate for open markets and ensuring a level playing field for our imports. And one of the most important mechanisms for achieving this autonomy is to boost our own competitiveness. So let's work together towards a genuine European reindustrialization, which works along with the green and digital transitions, which is not just a case of a simple transition. This sort of European reindustrialization will go far beyond just the sum of its 27 industrial policies. And if the European budget does not allow us to achieve this, then we need to think about opening up to other avenues of financing. Investment requires a long-term vision and a robust and benign regulatory framework. In any event, we need to make sure that we take even more of our economic fate into our own hands, and let us dare to dream of a future in which the Union plays an even greater geo-economic role. Ladies and gentlemen, the construction of Europe is a formidable journey that we take one step at a time. Negotiations with certain countries from our Eastern Partnership and the Western Balkans will soon take place. Expanding the Union also means strengthening it, and the 27 member states will be called on to act more resolutely, especially if we're going to increase the number of member states. But along the lines of the Conference on the Future of Europe, we have to draw some conclusions from crises of the past. At the start of the coronavirus pandemic, many fellow citizens didn't really understand why there were so many different and sometimes contradictory actions being taken when they were asking for more Europe and not less Europe. It's all the more important to demonstrate that we have a decisiveness in Europe when it comes to the areas of health, migration, defence and security, in the same way that we've managed to achieve in the areas of the environment and digitisation. When it comes to security, more specifically, we have already come a long way. However, the European security dimension could do well with some improvement, particularly in these uncertain times when even long-standing alliances are coming under pressure. Ladies and gentlemen, it is incumbent on us not to lose sight of the social dimension of the future of Europe. And the European Pillar of Social Rights, which was proclaimed in 2017, is really still the reference point in this regard. And what sets Europe apart from other major actors is that wealth creation goes hand in hand with robust social justice mechanisms. And this complementarity is absolutely essential to make sure that young people, the citizens of tomorrow, can keep their faith in Europe. There are many young people who are critical towards our way of life and the political world indeed. At the same time, they have this incredible capacity to get things moving. Within our European Union, there are unprecedented opportunities to look beyond our frontiers, to understand other perspectives and points of view, and to acquire new knowledge and understanding. Thanks to the Erasmus programme, each year my country welcomes more than 20,000 students, and just as many Belgians go to other countries. And this is absolutely vital to bolster the trust of our young people in the freedom of movement, open-mindedness and solidarity that characterise our democratic area. Ladies and gentlemen, I know how the defence of democracy within the European Union is alive and well within these walls of the European Parliament. More than ever, we are called on to defend our values in a consistent fashion, both inside the Union and outside the Union. And defending democracy or our freedoms should be self-evident. I am concerned about the loss of faith, the loss of trust in our institutions, and about the growing autocratic trend around the world. And this is why our institutions will need to work more on improving their credibility as to their own operations. And hence the policies adopted have to be directed towards the main concerns and fears of our citizens by coming up with results for them. Therefore, we need to involve citizens more in the democratic processes. My country, by the way, is actually home to a number of various promising initiatives in the area of citizen participation. Democracy is not only a guarantee of freedom and justice, but also of values of humanity. This includes the capacity to feel indignation in the face of suffering of people caught up in inhumane wars. The current global crisis, therefore, has a moral dimension. Individuals must remain the measure in all things, and it cannot be the possession of a state or used to glorify a leader or a single religion or a single ethnic group. Europe should be the home of humanity. May it then be the driving force behind the geopolitics of humanity. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to conclude with a thought from Václav Havel. I see the 12 stars of the European flag as a reminder that the world could become a better place if, from time to time, we had the courage to look up at the stars.
Ladies and gentlemen, in its current role as President of the Council, my country is at the service of the Union and its agenda. We aim to protect, strengthen and prepare our Europe for the future. With conviction, confidence and hope. Thank you.